think about the Fenway Kenmore neighborhood of Boston, maybe you think about baseball, maybe you think about a certain famous baseball team, maybe you think about the Citgo sign and that famous landmark in Fenway Kenmore. But actually living here, this is probably the most energetic neighborhood in Boston and definitely one of the most evolving places to live in the city as well. So today I'm going to be taking you on a full map tour so you can see exactly what it's like to call Fenway Kenmore home in 2025. And make sure you stick around to the very end because I'll definitely be diving into the housing market here as well so you know exactly what it takes to live in this section of Boston. Let's get going. Hey everybody, welcome to Moving to Boston. If you're here again, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Mike O'Brien. I'm a Greater Boston real estate agent and expert. And on this channel, I take you on tours of different neighborhoods in and around Boston so you get a real sense of what life is like here and in these specific areas, again, in and around Boston. So if you're thinking about relocating, buying here, or maybe you're just curious, don't worry, you are in the right place, but let's dive in, let's jump in to the Fenway Kenmore section of Boston. All right, let's start off as we always do by giving you a sense of where this neighborhood is in relation to Boston and some of the surrounding areas. So downtown Boston here, and you start to see the outline of Fenway Kenmore. And this is really the last neighborhood or one of the last neighborhoods kind of west of the city before you start to get into some outlying areas like Brookline and, Alston Brighton section. I mean, you have JP, which is still Boston down here. But again, one of the last neighborhoods as you start to get some other areas, again, right on the waterfront and kind of right in the middle of things here in Boston. And so let's start to zoom in a little bit. And it's not a very large neighborhood, but they do cram a lot into this section of Boston. So just to give you a little satellite view, again, it is jam-packed with a lot of different things. You start to see some green space here, which is great. Boston University, but a lot going on in Fenway. And so if we start to zoom in a little bit, and let's get the Kenmore Square, because when you're in Kenmore Square, it's really kind of the front door to Fenway, if you will. You have Commonwealth Ave, you have Beacon Street, you have Brookline, really this big intersection of three major roads that all connect coming into Boston or going out to Boston or going out of Boston, depending how you look at it. So if you're in Kenmore Square, you're kind of at the hub of this neighborhood of Boston and one of the major hubs in Boston as well. So let's get down the street level and start to give you a little spin, a little sense of Kenmore Square right here. So the T stops right down the way here. Let's see if we can get over here. So there's your Kenmore T stop. And look, well, that's a bus. Never mind. T's not there. But again, not only a major hub just in terms of the roads and converging, but you also have a major T stop right here. They actually just redid this T stop not too long ago. But if we go back out to the, well, there, we'll get into that a little bit. We go back out to the aerial view. Not only I want to show you Kenmore Square, but also just kind of want to show you, we saw the green space, but a lot of Kenmore is Boston University as well. And kind of, if we show you that border again, you can see how it kind of goes all around BU. So this is all BU here. The athletic fields, they do stretch into the Alston area of Boston, but in terms of most of the academic buildings, this entire stretch is all BU. So just give you a little street look of that. Go down to Com Ave. And now we're right in the thick of, BU's campus. You have their own T stop there on the B line. The B line, part of the Green Line, and one of kind of several offshoots that goes from Boston downtown, having, I guess, been at the end of the B line because it goes all the way to Boston College. I can say that the B line, the Green Line, has probably the most stops of any of the Green Line stretching, I guess, west out from Boston. So Dugout Cafe, you start to see some of the baseball themed uh, I would say eateries or bars that are around the Fenway area. You have to love a good insomnia cookie location. You get those late night cookies warm delivered. You have to love Fenway as well. But some great architecture at BU, by the way. Not only kind of the more traditional, but um, this building. What is that? That's the data science building, the new data science building at BU. So um, as we work through BU, and you can see the green line that goes street level all the way down. It does eventually go underground once you get to Kenmore Square. Oh, Starbucks. I've heard of that one. Have you heard of that one? Me too. So again, you have ComEv that stretches through BU, gets back down to Kenmore Square. So, on game days, as we work our way down, and you start to see the Sitco sign there in the distance. As you start to get to Kenmore Square, I mean, on game days, this is just, and there's some nice green space here as well. Um, Obviously, it's going to be just kind of buzzing and a lot of foot traffic, a lot of pedestrian traffic on game days as we see the Sitco sign. If you ever watched a Red Sox game, you often see from the outfield. I could probably I go outside right now and maybe able to see the Sitco sign. If not, definitely the lights from Fenway once it gets dark. So, average weekday here, it's just, students, professionals, locals, grabbing coffee, grabbing a bite. Um, and whether they're heading towards BU's campus or maybe they're heading towards a workplace like Whoop, which you may have just seen, or commuting elsewhere, living near Kenmore, a lot of foot traffic for sure, especially living in Kenmore. But you have that convenience, you have the transit, you have the restaurants, you have just pretty much everything at your fingertips as you work through Kenmore Square. So maybe you don't want to live, dead center Kenmore Square because this will get pretty crowded on game days and just kind of summer in general, just because there's so much going on in the Fenway Kenmore section. But if you're looking for that energy, if you're looking to be in the thick of things, then being in Kenmore Square or right next door or right near it, you're going to find what you're looking for there. But we can't talk about Fenway without talking about good old Fenway Park, of course. So let's head up and start to take a look at it. As we do head up, by the way, David Ortiz bridge here, Big Poppy. And so much of the nightlife in Kenmore Fenway is, of course, centered around the ballpark. Why wouldn't it be? So I'll start to show you some of the places here. You have Cask and Flag in here, big popular hangout before games. You have Game On as well. Sal's Pizza, why wouldn't you? Right across from Game On, you have local great taqueria. Hey, and if you're into vegan, you got Plant Pub right there. So as we go down Brooklyn Ave, you start to see Fenway kind of off, not so off in the distance, but there it is. So Lansdowne Street is the major thoroughfare. This is the famous street. So again, if you don't know about Fenway, one of the most historic parks, baseball parks in all of America. It was built in 1912, and it's not just a stand. It's a museum. Right? People don't only come here to watch the Red Sox games, but they are here to also kind of experience or be in a bit of history. And when you're at Fenway Park, let's see if we can get a little aerial view. When you're in Fenway Park and the Sox are doing well, there are not many better places to be. So let's get back. Just so I can give you a little. There's an aerial view right there, but. Oh, you have Bleacher Bar right there as well. I forgot to tell you about that one. That is a bar that's actually, we'll go back outside to show you, but that is a bar that actually looks through the outfield wall it's basically under the stands, and you look into Fenway from the Bleacher Bar. It's a great place to grab a bite, grab a drink, and and kind of be in Fenway without necessarily being in Fenway. Yes, it is a legendary home of the Red Sox. Whether you're a fan or not, it's tough to argue about the legendary status of Fenway Park. Let's see if we can zoom in a little bit. And I mean, I didn't grow up a Red Sox fan or anything like that, but I can tell you it is an amazing place to watch a game. There are few experiences like it. So, and also if you're lucky enough to get those seats on the Green Monster, just unbelievable to be able to sit up there and take in a game. So I had to give you a little, of course, aerial view and zoomed in view and 3D view here of Fenway Park. But like we said, let's see if we can get back down to the street level. So we'll start. We'll go back to Bleacher Bar since that's what I was just talking about, and that's a garage. So is that truck going to be? Yeah, I think that truck might block our view. Oh, there it is. So yeah, there it is. So again, if you blink, you might miss you're walking by. But again, you go in there and the far wall. Oh, you can look into the outfield uh, of Fenway, which is awesome. So not only do you have Fenway Park here, but you're surrounded by entertainment. So as you have House of Blues here. As we take a quick look at who's maybe playing sometime soon. So I think that show has come and gone, but great music venue here. And the foundation room, a little bit of a private space for music and events. That's an amazing room. If you have a chance to go to an event there or a concert there, or a show there, definitely do so because it's a really great atmosphere. So you have all these other eateries around Lansdowne. So again, like it has the restaurants, the music venues, the clubs, and just keeps this area kind of really lively all year round. So you have the Lansdowne pub here. You have Bill's Bar. You have Cheeky Monkey Brewing Company. If you want to get your sports on, you have Loretta's, but then you also have Lucky Strike. So go get your go get your bowling on. Have and it gets pretty lively at night with DJs and obviously food, drink, all that. So you have all these great eateries, bars. You also have MGM Music Hall, which has become a nice kind of medium-sized music venue in right by Fenway in downtown Boston. So you had a lot of smaller clubs. Maybe House of Blues was kind of the biggest, and then you would have to go to either TD Garden, which is obviously a huge club or huge venue, and then Agganis Arena was also a pretty large venue. But this one is kind of kind of found that space and the gap in terms of number of attendees. I can't tell you off the top of my head. I'm sure it's a couple of thousand, but so this has become a really nice venue added to the Fenway section in downtown Boston area. So we come up Ipswich Street. So again, if you're living near Fenway, you're not lacking for places to go, places to eat, so on and so forth. So Fenway Park, and you're definitely going to be in the thick of things and feel that energy on just a daily basis, and especially on game day. And as we head back down Ipswich Street and go back towards Lansdowne Street, I mean, it bears mentioning that when you're right here, that you're within walking distance of so many great things. So you get to walk to the nightlife, you get to walk to these places, not have to deal with Ubers across the city. But it is worth noting, of course, if you're living within these blocks, and obviously it's tough to live right next to Fenway, you're not going to find a lot of housing there. But if you're living in this area, it can get noisy, right? So for some, it doesn't matter. They want to be in the thick of things, and that's fine. And you do start to see housing options here as we get a little bit of Fenway away from Fenway. But if you're looking in the thick of things, great. It can be noisy if that doesn't matter to you. Yard House, by the way, another great place to grab beverages and a bite. But if that is not the vibe for you, you can still get away from Fenway and avoid a little bit more of that noise. And maybe that's a spot for you. All right, so let's go back up to the sky view and the aerial view here. And we just saw Fenway Park and all the activity and things they have right outside or right next to the park on Lansdowne Street and the surrounding streets. But let's go to a kind of a different cultural genre, if you will. And you have the Museum of Fine Arts here in Boston, one of my favorite places to be, if I'm being honest. And I'm a little bit biased. The wife and I are members at MFA. And so you get to come down here and see all these great exhibitions. Not too long ago, great George O'Keeffe exhibit that came through for a couple months. Salvatore Dali was had a great exhibit. They had a great Dali exhibition there for a bit, and so we probably don't get down here as much as we want to, but still able to make it down quite a bit. So again, you start to see the great architecture. All right, so let me see if I can play this right because, well, I can't necessarily take you inside the museum. I kind of might be able to. Yeah. Oh, and look at that. We're already right at coat check. So listen, I'm not going to take you all the way through the museum here, if it's even going to let me. But start to give a little sense of what's inside the MFA. Again, this is just one of my favorite places in Boston. Not afraid to say it. And the great thing about the MFA, like a lot of museums, of course, is that they keep things new. Sure, the big exhibits come through for a couple months, but they're always keeping things fresh. That's just fun to see. Always keeping things fresh, constantly cycling exhibitions in and out. And so make sure you check it out. Apparently, we are definitely in the Egyptian section of the museum, which all went good. But again, just a little sense of what's inside the MFA. And this is the Fenway Kenmore section, not only great because of Fenway and the Museum of Fine Arts, but not too far away is the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. And this is, how can I put this? This is almost like a Venetian palace that's kind of been put right here in Boston. It may look a little, I don't say ordinary from the outside, but now if I could just give you a quick overview of what the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum is all about. And the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum is an art museum in Boston, which houses significant examples of European, Asian, and American art. So this museum is basically a home where art furniture has been collected, donated. And let's see if we can drop down here into the museum and start to give you a sense. So you walk in and you have this just amazing courtyard atrium. Is that what we'd officially call this? I think so. So you have this, and you do events here too, weddings, otherwise. And let's see if we can start to. This is great. Let's see. Okay, let's see if we can go up the stairs here. I don't think it's going to let us, but if I go back to this and start to scroll through the images a little bit. Again, all these great rooms with all this amazing furniture, tapestries, art pieces, stained glass, gold leaf everywhere. It's amazing. So again, don't want to take you through all of it, but yeah, I mean, ceiling frescoes and murals, all those things. So, when you're in the Fenway section, again, you have your access to sports, music venues, and you have access to museums like the MFA and Isabel Stewart Garden Museum. It really makes it, again, another example of how this place and this neighborhood just has everything you could want. So as we go from the Isabella Stewart Garden Museum, we start to now go back over and explore this green space over here, because I don't think this is something that people expect, right? I mean, Fenway Kenmore is just it's just so urban, right? You have ComAv going through, you have the Mass Pike going through, you have all, it's tightly packed, building wise, residential and otherwise, but then you have this little green space. And behind Fenway is the Back Bay Fens. And you have the Fenway Garden Society here. So this is part of Boston's Emerald Necklace kind of green space network. As you see, you have the fence here, and it then stretches over this way to the Riverway, and then gets down to Lever Pond and keeps on going all the way down into Jamaica Plain. And you have Jamaica Pond. So at the beginning of this Emerald Necklace, if you will, is the fence. And so it's got just trails. You have ball fields here, as you see, athletic fields. And let's see if we can get down there. So again, you have all this green space. You have the Garden Society. Let's see if we actually can get back up and see that Garden Society. So we want to go around the corner here. But you have Victory Gardens, which we'll try and hit up as well. It was just one of the oldest community gardens in the country. And so you kind of have this balance, right? You have this balance of the excitement of, we'll call it downtown Fenway, downtown Kenmore, but you're never you're never more than a few minutes away from the green space. And so a Sunday afternoon, you're going to see people tending to the community gardens here. And it's going to be tough to take a look, but you have this huge community garden back here, one of the biggest in the city. And so you're going to see people, taking advantage of the trails here, the roadways. You're going to be maybe setting up a picnic, maybe, maybe definitely going to be walking their dogs. Let's see if we can get back out. So again, and there's that Fenway Garden Society. So you have this great community garden. You have really the waterfront here, and you just have we talk about it in Boston a lot, because Boston's done just a great job of setting up these little oases, in an urban environment. And so, this is right at your disposal if you want to get away from the hubbub and the busyness, literally, and take a break from all the energy that Fenway Kenmore provides. So as we work away from the Fens now, I want to just get to what I think is one of the cooler spots in Fenway Kenmore. So, I'm not sure if you can see that, but you're going to find a lot of what you need in Fenway Kenmore. So you saw Bed Bath & Beyond, maybe not around anymore, but Staples, you have Star Market, you have Target, but you also have Time Out Market over here. And it's just this cool, and it's not really a new section anymore, but just this building, or we'll call it a really nice food court, if you will. So Time Out Market, it's all within this building. And let's see, can we zoom in? So yeah, I have all these different eateries in there. Union Square Donut, now you're talking about A&B Burger, awesome. Taqueria El Barrio, also. I mean, you can't go wrong with any of these these places in there. So you have Time Out Market. So it's kind of like this food court, dining hall, whatever you want to call it, however you want to classify it, with all these just great individual eateries in there. And then not too far away, you also have Trillium, Fenway. So they have a couple locations in Boston, but this is their Fenway. So local brewery, fantastic beers if you were into that. So not only can you get some great food here at Time Out Market, also, I mean, you can go there for seemingly every day for 2 weeks and find something different. And then you can also get a nice little beverage here at Trillium Fenway. So, again, day-to-day living, we talk about all the energy and the nightlife and whatnot, but at the end of the day, Fenway Kenmore is just a great section where you have everything you need, be it, if you want to go out to, different restaurant eat tonight, but you do need the day-to-day of living for your groceries, for your office supplies, whatever it is. But, because Fenway Kenmore is such kind of a compact space, it does have everything you need kind of easily accessible and within a short, amount of distance. So, taking you through a lot of what Fenway Kenmore has to offer and giving you a little, I think, a pretty good lay of the land. But let's start to talk about the housing market now here in Fenway Kenmore specifically. All right, so let's talk about the housing market now here in Fenway Kenmore because at the end of the day, there's just not a lot of it. Again, this is a pretty small section, pretty small neighborhood. Um, a lot of it is BU. So you're going to have a lot of student housing, apartment rentals. They have some high-rise buildings, high-rise dormitories, but you can definitely, as you go towards like Back Bay here, you have all that. We've seen this section before. At least if you've been along for my Back Bay video, but you do have kind of a similar section here as we see. We go 3D. So again, much like Back Bay, you do have some of these old brownstones, along the water with condominium or single family opportunities there. You start to see some of the mid-size apartment buildings as well. And then as you head down Brookline or Boylston, really Boylston, you start to come across some of these these high rises here with housing opportunities. So again, this is, I'm not sure if you saw as we were going through, there's always seemingly construction cranes going on. In fact, there we go. We have some over here, it seems, next to the Marriott Boston, the Residence Inn. But again, the housing options are, kind of what the same as what you see in a lot of downtown neighborhoods. You're going to have, some availability when it comes to the older construction or older architecture, like these brownstones, like maybe I want to call them double deckers or triple deckers because that's not accurate. But you have some of this older architecture and housing there, and then you have some of these mid-rise buildings, commercial, residential. You have the dormitories over here at BU, but again, now you're starting to see some of these more modern buildings come in where you have, condominium and apartment opportunities. By the way, Mita, great Italian food there. Sorry, it bears mentioning. But if we get into kind of the nitty gritty of the housing market and head on over here to the MLS. So looking at single families, condominiums, and we're looking in Fenway and Kenmore section here, and 25 listings on the market right now. And that's just a byproduct of there just not being as many homes available, just not available, just as many homes as some of these other neighborhoods in Boston. But let's take a look at the pricing here. So if we're looking at the single family market, and I wonder if there's even going to be, so there's not even a single family available. It's all condos. And you see, in these mid-rise buildings, some high rise, and some of these row houses that we saw maybe along the waterfront, brownstone, like we talked about, or now you're getting to some of these penthouses, in these high rise buildings as well. So if we look at the map and where these are, So yeah, you don't have a lot of opportunity, down towards the waterfront at all. They're all kind of in the guts, in the guts of Fenway Kenmore section. Now, if we look at the pricing, so again, all condos. And listen, you can get a studio condo, for $360,000 right now. Been, lingering on the market a little bit. You have a fair amount that are actually fairly affordable by Boston pricing standards. But if we go all the way down, so the average, the average list price right now, again, you have some of these high rise, penthouse buildings, 3 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, more than 2,000 high rise, however you want to classify them, with over 100 units in there. These are going to be the price units. So the average list price is, over $1.3 million, but these ones have lasted more than a couple months on the market. And you can see, 25 listings, and I'd say more than half of them are below that 1 million mark, which, for Boston downtown, it can be considered a little impressive. And that's just on the market right now. If we go and look at these sold properties, so if we look at the sold listings, again, 49, that's still not a ton. And I don't think we're going to be finding any single families right now either, but, condominiums. And so in terms of what is sold, if the average list price right now is 1.3 for what's on the market available right now. So average list price was, 890, average sale price 875, days to offer. That's more than a month. Days on the market, almost 2 months. So this, and there's some, but don't get me wrong, there's still a fair amount of properties. You can see 1 day to offer, 3 days to offer, 5 days to offer, 4. So, and you're still finding condominiums here where you can get a small studio, very small studio at affordable prices. But again, a fair amount of properties that are coming in, under or at in that $500,000, but you're still very much seeing, price per square foot. If you want to look at it that way, price per square foot is still $1,000, more than $1,000 on the sales here. But at the same time, while you do have those properties are going quick, you are seeing the properties linger a little bit longer than maybe we've seen in recent months, and especially compared to last year. So, the market is still, I think, very much a seller's market, but you're seeing more opportunity for buyers than we've seen, definitely compared to 2024 or maybe even earlier this year. So, and you're still going to find plenty of properties, above that $1 million mark and well into the multi-million dollars. But, for those, that's kind of a broad overview of the housing market. But I just want to check out the rental market. There's so many apartments available, and there you go, 346 apartments rented in the last in the last 6 months. So without getting into it at all, let's just go standard. I don't want to say standard, but let's just look at what a 2 bedroom, 2 bathroom is going for in the Fenway. So 2 bedroom, at least 1.5 baths. So at least, 2 bathrooms of some sort. And you can see it starts at, a little bit below $4,000, but really largely in that $4,000 price range into the fives, and sure, as you get into, some of the really nice apartments. If you're like, Mike, I'd like it simple. What's a 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom look like rental wise? Well, I'll tell you if I could get back to the field. Oops. Yeah, it doesn't have 11 bathrooms. No, that's not what we're looking for. Okay, let's try again. So 156, not lacking for those. And there you start to see, mainly in the twos into the threes. I mean, there's a ton of it, but we just go down the average sale. So again, you're looking right around $3,000 per month for a 1 bedroom, 1 bath, so varying in square footage, but, you can find them in the twos, but, there's just not a lot of apartments in Boston right now, regardless of where you are, where you're going to find necessarily that first number is going to be a 1. So that is a kind of a broad overview. The housing stock here is a real mix at the end of the day. So again, around Bay Street Road, BU campus, you're going to see those historic brownstones that are going to be kind of split between owner occupied, and you're going to have student rentals down here as well. Along Boylston Street, along Boylston Street, you're going to see, you know, again, some of those luxury towers that we poked in on a little bit, and some of those more modern buildings that have gone up in the last decade. You're also going to see, um, tucked in between, and you get definitely, we talked about smaller apartment buildings, mid-rise apartment buildings, and this neighborhood draws, I'd say, just everyone. You have first-time home buyers of all sorts. You have investors. You just have professionals maybe looking to that urban lifestyle or looking for that easy commute to downtown or wherever they're working. So a real smorgasbord, if you will, of kind of condominium living or apartment living here in the Fenway section of Boston, or Fenway Kenmore section of Boston, and all sorts of every ilk of homeowner and apartment seeker as well. So let's take one last sweep here of Fenway Kenmore section of Boston before we wrap things up. All right, sir. So let's take one last sweep here of the Fenway Kenmore section of Boston before we wrap things up. So again, just know that, just know where the pricing is at here. If you're thinking about Fenway Kenmore, either to buy or you're looking for an apartment. And again, it's still a seller's market, but a good time to be a buyer, just because things have been lingering, depending on what you're looking at, of course, and where you're looking at it, particularly in this neighborhood, but opportunity for buyers out there as well. So one last sweep, one last look-see, Fenway Kenmore section of Boston. So the Fenway Kenmore section of Boston is just an amazing place to be, but living there may not be for everyone. If you're looking for quiet suburban streets, and it's probably not the spot for you, but if you're looking to be where kind of like everything is, you want that liveliness, you want that energy, you want the culture, the history, the nightlife, where all that intersects, well, then it's hard to beat this area of Boston. There's not many places like it. You have the ballpark. Again, you have the world-class museums. You have that nightlife like we've talked about. You have the conveniences of daily life. They're all within walking distance when you're in the Fenway Kenmore section of Boston. And with the 2025 housing market seemingly holding strong, it's becoming a neighborhood that's only becoming more and more desirable to live. So if Fenway Kenmore feels like the right fit for you, reach out. I'd love to help out with your search. You can DM me on Instagram at MichaelBryanHomes. You can email me directly at michaelbryanhomes@gmail.com. Happy to walk you through the market, or walk you through the neighborhood in person, show you what's on the market, and maybe show you what could be coming to market sometime soon. And again, make sure you don't go anywhere. I got another video popping up on the channel right now, but I appreciate you coming on this tour with me of Fenway Kenmore here in Boston. Thanks for watching today, and we'll see you in the next video.